My husband inherited $5 million, then said, "Let's divorce, you're not needed anymore." Helen sued. My husband, Jack, made it clear, Andy, Primark, after receiving his inheritance, "I don't need a life with you anymore. I'm inheriting $5 million. I don't need you when I have that money." His cold words, like a sharp knife, sliced through our marriage, leaving me feeling like a mere obstacle in his path. He didn't know yet the significant secret associated with the $5 million inheritance. "Mom, is it true that Grandpa is in critical condition?" My daughter, Sophie's unexpected question caught me off guard. Ethan, Jack's father, was in a serious condition. It was a secret between Jack and me. "Did you get that information from your dad?" I asked, my voice trembling slightly. The only one who might have told Sophie was Jack. "Yes," she replied, her eyes wide. "And on a call from Dad, he told me to renounce Grandpa's inheritance." Sophie's words unsettled me. Because of this single phone call, my peaceful life was about to be shaken. A few days after that call, Ethan passed away peacefully. Since getting married, I've lived with Jack's parents, never hesitating to support them when their health worsened. It had been 5 years since Jack's mother passed away, and now we received the news of Ethan's passing. The funeral went smoothly, but the moment I thought I was free from the tension, my husband's behavior changed dramatically. "What are you doing here? Why hasn't it been cleaned properly lately?" Jack would frequently point out minor dust and small stains. "I'm sorry, I must have missed it." "I'll clean it right now," I'd apologize, my heart sinking. "This place isn't cleaned well either." "Do you really clean every day?" "Of course I clean with the same routine as always," I'd reply, my voice strained. Even though I cleaned just as always, I couldn't understand why Jack was so angry. It seemed the issue wasn't just about cleaning. "Why are you serving this? I wish you'd pay more attention to the taste when you cook," he'd complain, his voice laced with disapproval. It was hard when the dishes I put effort into were criticized one by one. Even the dishes he used to enjoy were now unappreciated. "Is there something bothering you lately?" I finally plucked up the courage to ask, hoping to ease the tension. But it seemed to worsen his mood. "It's useless to deny it," he said, his voice cold. "To be honest, the food you make isn't good. I've been tolerating it because my parents never complained, but I've always felt its tastelessness." Jack's words pierced my heart, coldly and sharply. It was the first time he had ever criticized me so severely. I knew when Jack was this upset, anything I said would only fan the flames. My mom always cleaned and did laundry perfectly, and at mealtimes, she cooked with care without cutting corners. "You're nothing like her." I've been patient, but I can't stand it any longer. This was the first time he compared me to his mother and criticized me so harshly. All I could do was reflect deeply on myself. I was truly sorry. I couldn't have imagined that he valued my cooking so little. Jack always used to smile and say, "It's delicious," when eating. When we first got married, his mother gave me cooking advice, thinking he always found my cooking tasteless. Tears started to flow uncontrollably. "Do you think anything will change if you cry?" "Your tears mean nothing now. Don't show them to me," he said, his voice hard. Lately, everything just felt so tedious. After saying those words, Jack suddenly stood up and left the house, slamming the door behind him. "Jack, where are you going?" "Come back," I called out, my voice trembling. But it seemed he didn't hear me. My mind was in turmoil, unable to keep up with this sudden change, unable to understand what had just happened. Until a few months ago, we were a couple who shared everything, holding hands, sharing the small joys of daily life, and tackling minor grievances together. I couldn't understand why we had become so distant. Then I remembered the content of the call from Sophie. "It's about Ethan's inheritance." There was a hint of hesitation in Sophie's voice that night. Jack came home much later than usual, and I missed the opportunity to ask him about it. Was there something going on? Maybe Jack found out some information about the inheritance and wanted to keep it to himself. I tried to approach Sophie. "I wonder why they're discussing inheritance while Grandpa is still in good health." She had expressed doubts about Jack and said she had conveyed the same to him. "If the way the inheritance is divided doesn't change, it will all fall into my hands." Considering Sophie, I believe this is the best way. Recalling Jack's recent cold behavior towards Sophie, doubts crossed my mind. If he intends to take all the inheritance and abandon me, this thought tightened my chest and tears again welled up in my eyes. In my pain, I became keenly aware of the sounds around me. Just as the room became eerily silent, the sudden ring of the phone echoed throughout. I didn't feel up to answering, but it could be important. Checking the caller ID, I saw Jack's name. The same Jack who had left the house earlier. Picking up felt tiresome, but I also didn't want to face any backlash for ignoring it, so I hesitantly answered. "What are you doing? Don't keep me waiting. I'm running out of time." His sudden authoritative tone took me by surprise. He was indeed stubborn at times, but he wasn't someone who would yell without a reason in the past. Shocked by his changed demeanor, I let out a slight sigh, hoping he wouldn't notice. "What's wrong? Is there a problem?" I asked cautiously. "I have something to talk about. I'll be home soon. Stay home and wait for me." Lately, his voice sounded unmistakably colder than before. I replied with a brief okay and promptly hung up. Looking at the clock, more than 3 hours had already passed since Jack went out. I had been crying, so overwhelmed with confusion and pain that I hadn't realized how much time had passed. After a while, I heard the door open and Jack's footsteps. A sweet scent of body wash, one we didn't use at home, wafted from him. That unfamiliar smell intensified the pain in my chest. "I'll be straight for work. I want to end our relationship. As a token of gratitude, I'll give you $220,000, he said, his voice emotionless. His words were something I had feared deep down. Still facing this reality, the shock was so immense that I felt tears drying up. "I'm genuinely tired of you not managing things at home. I want to live peacefully in my old age," he continued, his voice laced with a cold bitterness. Linda had dreamt of a peaceful old age. However, the one who began to shatter that dream was none other than Jack. "Why are you?" Her words trailed off as she searched for what to say. Jack looked at her with a smug smile. At that moment, a bright ringtone from Jack's cell phone filled the room. The unfamiliar tone was clearly different from his usual one. To Linda, it felt as if this unusual sound hinted at a communication from a specific individual. "I'm sorry, but I haven't finished my errands yet," Jack said, his voice softening slightly. It was a different tone than how he usually sounded towards her. It felt somewhat kinder and more intimate. Furthermore, the sweet scent of body wash in the room, the unique ringtone from earlier, and the changed tone of his voice. All these events hinted at something he might be hiding. "I knew it," Linda whispered quietly so that Jack wouldn't hear. He had been too overt about his external affair. Considering the inheritance he might be getting soon, the alimony might be insignificant for him, even if his infidelity becomes evident. After ending his call, Jack looked down at Linda with emotionless, cold eyes. "My intentions haven't changed. I want you to sign this document. I'll contact you later. Make sure to have it signed by then. I don't plan to come back to this house. Remember, this house is now yours," he said, his voice devoid of any emotion. Without uttering another word or even looking at my face, he headed towards the door. What did our long marital life of 40 years mean? A few days later, I found myself at a lawyer's office, gathering information about Jack's actions and Ethan's inheritance. I explained it to our daughter, Sophie. Her complexion changed. It was painful to show our daughter our mistakes, but Sophie, out of love for me, let her emotions out and shed tears. Then she showed strong determination to confront Jack and introduced me to a lawyer to support us. Hello, I am Robinson. I will be handling your case. I will support you to the best of my ability." The woman named Robinson, sitting across from me, seemed to be in her late 40s, exuding a calm aura. Her neatly groomed hair and attire gave off a professional vibe. Her clear way of speaking provided me with a sense of reassurance. "I'm truly sorry for approaching you suddenly. My name is Linda Johnson. I'm a bit nervous since it's our first meeting under such circumstances." "That's all right. I have already received some information from Sophie," Mrs. Robinson replied. "Sophie has briefed me on the overview, so I was able to talk in detail with peace of mind. Based on what I've researched over the days and the information Mrs. Robinson separately gathered for me, we verified the facts. My husband doesn't have any siblings, so if our daughter, Sophie, renounces the inheritance, the huge fortune, which amounts to about $5 million, will all go to my husband. Also, Jack's affair with a woman named Jennifer began at a bar they happened to visit. It seemed their relationship continued for about 6 months. She seems quite different from me, and I was curious about what happened between her and my husband. Through joint investigation with Mrs. Robinson, we were able to uncover an important fact that my husband might not yet know." "Linda, how do you intend to proceed from here?" Mrs. Robinson asked me in a gentle tone and soft eyes. "Thank you from the bottom of my heart. I deeply appreciate it, I replied, smiling towards Mrs. Robinson. I handed over the fee for the procedures, and after a brief exchange with her, I quietly left the office. 5 days later, I received a call from Jack on my cell phone. He proposed a meeting in a quiet cafe. I arrived a bit earlier than our scheduled time. The cafe was surprisingly empty. The owner warmly welcomed me and suggested I pick any seat. I chose a seat by the window to enjoy the calm outside view. After a while, the entrance bell rang, and in my line of sight stood Jack and his new girlfriend, Jennifer. When Jack saw me, he smirked with a sense of pride. "Are you prepared for the divorce?" he asked, his voice laced with a smug confidence. It seems he's convinced he's in full control. "Is this your new associate?" I asked, my voice betraying my surprise. I hadn't expected him to bring her to such an important discussion, and I was astonished at his decision. I wondered if he was the man I once deeply loved. Has he changed because he cheated, or was he always like this? I can't tell. "You're Jack's wife, right?" Jennifer said with a sudden smile. "My name is Jennifer. I've recently started dating him. I've heard a lot about you from Jack. Seeing you in person, you do look a bit aged. I wonder how Jack endured all these years. I feel a little sorry for him." Indeed, Jennifer seems to take great care of her appearance. She looks much younger than her actual age in her 60s. Compared to her, I might look my age, but I can't accept the way she phrased it. "Jennifer, it's those tendencies of yours I warned you about," Jack interjected, his voice sharp. "But indeed, I did think that," Jennifer said, her smile unwavering. "But Jack, if it were me, I would cherish you more," I said softly. "I know, Linda. I don't want you to overthink it anymore. I just want you to file the divorce papers," Jack said, his tone impatient. "Hold on," I said, noticing a hint of confusion on Jack's face. "There's something I want to discuss." "What are you getting at? Is it all about your father's inheritance? Is that why, after all our years of marriage, you're deciding this?" I wanted to know the truth behind all these events. "I can't see how my father's inheritance and you are related." "That's solely my father's," Jack said, his voice defensive. "I've heard detailed stories about your father's vast inheritance from Sophie. I know how much it's worth," I said, my voice firm. "So what?" "That inheritance isn't for you to take, but I'll answer. Actually, more than the inheritance itself, the end of taking care of my parents is one of the reasons I want to part with you." "Just a caregiver role," Jack said, his voice cold. How did Jack see me only as a caregiver and not the loving wife I used to be? I don't even have the energy to cry. "Can we speed this up, Jack?" "I want to start our new life," Jennifer said, her voice impatient. "Besides, have you still not let go of Jack?" she asked, her eyes narrowed. "Don't make me repeat myself. I'm not thinking of a new start with you now. I want you to file the divorce papers," I said, my voice firm. Waves of emotion struck my heart with intense anger and deep sadness. My hand quivered slightly. Taking a deep breath, I pulled out the divorce papers. "But my name isn't written yet. The situation isn't settled yet," I said, my voice calm but firm. "To hand it over, you remember promising me the house and money, right?" I clearly remember when we talked about it. "Yeah, I did say that. I'm a man of my word, so I plan to give you the house and money," Jack said, his voice grudging. "You say you're kind, but a truly kind person wouldn't just use their wife as a mere caregiver and then abandon her, so I'm demanding rightful compensation of $30,000 in the rights to the house," I said, my voice unwavering. "What compensation? When we talked about money, it was supposed to be $20,000. You always nitpick at the very end. Your attitude of trying to pay me the absolute minimum is so obvious," I said, my voice rising with anger. "But the difference of $10,000 means a lot to me, so I think $30,000 as compensation is fair." "Your girlfriend, it's Jennifer, right?" I asked, my voice laced with a hint of sarcasm. "I thought of claiming from her too, but in lieu of that, I want to settle for $330,000. And I intend to sign the divorce papers right here in front of you." Jennifer reacted unexpectedly, first commenting about $30,000 should be fine. "Jack, pay it if you're satisfied with it," she said, her voice indifferent. With Jennifer's statement, Jack finally accepted the alimony of $30,000. Now we need Jack's signature on the land title change document Mrs. Robinson prepared and the notarized alimony agreement, I said, my voice calm and steady. Jack looked surprised by my preparations. Still, I calmly said, "I have a life to continue to," easing his suspicions. We took out our respective seals, lined up at the designated spot, and Jack smiled as if he anticipated something. "So, Linda, will you sign the divorce papers right now?" he asked, his voice laced with a mocking amusement. "Understood. Here's the divorce paper," I said, handing him the document. As I carefully wrote my name and firmly stamped it, Jack couldn't hold back his laughter and laughed out loud. "With this, you and I no longer have any relationship. Also, I have something to tell you. Actually, I'm set to inherit $5 million, so I didn't need someone like you. Thanks for the divorce. What a foolish ex-wife you had, letting go so easily for just $30,000. Jack's voice sneered behind me as I left, followed by the loud laughter of Jack and Jennifer echoing. I hurriedly left and headed to the city hall. My only goal now is to complete this procedure as quickly as possible and sever ties with the two of them completely. They might be laughing happily now, but I wondered how long their happiness would last. A month later, I quickly sold the house I received from Jack, prepared for a new life, and decided to live near my daughter, Sophie, who planned to start her life near her husband's parents' home. Since Jack's mother lived nearby, I thought there would inevitably be moments I'd feel cautious. But contrary to my concerns, Sophie's husband warmly welcomed me and was always considerate, which I found very reassuring. My daughter, Sophie, seemed angry at Jack's actions at first, but when I told her a certain fact, her expression changed completely and she smiled brightly. I had a hunch that Jack would soon realize my plan. As proof, I deliberately didn't change my mobile number. The day that intuition became a reality came sooner than I thought. From the afternoon, my mobile rang repeatedly, and sure enough, it was Jack. He called many times, but at first I didn't answer. After receiving repeated calls, I finally picked up. "Hello. Why are you doing this?" I couldn't hide my surprise. "What's the matter?" "You called out of the blue." Jack raised his voice. "What's the problem? Where are you right now?" I thought he might have visited the house we used to live in, but in reality, that house had already been sold. "Since we've decided to divorce, there's no me for you to be involved anymore," I said, my voice calm and steady. "Where did Sophie go? I can't find her," he said, his voice desperate. "It seems he went to Sophie's previous house. Of course, she wasn't there. And I managed all the information and procedures related to Sophie's husband's family home, so Jack had no way of knowing. He seems to have hit a dead end and contacted me." "Yes, actually, Sophie has moved to a new place," I replied calmly. "Why didn't you tell me something so important? Moreover, did you know about that too?" Jack seemed to have finally realized the truth. "By that, are you referring to the significant hidden debt that Ethan had?" I asked, my voice calm and steady. Actually, when I investigated Ethan's inheritance in detail, I was shocked by the amount of the inheritance, but at the same time, I found out about a considerable hidden debt. Probably while he was alive, he estimated he could repay the debt with about $5 million and hid that fact from us. However, he passed away midway through repayment, and the hidden debt was left neglected. And when you officially receive an inheritance, you are also obliged to inherit such hidden debts, I explained calmly. Jack was blinded by the allure of easy money and neglected thorough verification and investigation. That was his big mistake. "So, I have a question. Did you really know about my dad's debt?" Information is easy to come by. It becomes clear to anyone with a little search. That's why I noticed it, I explained calmly. I could imagine Jack turning red with anger on the other end of the phone. "Anyway, what about the promised money? What about the money you intended to return?" Jack's voice was laced with desperation. "After all, about that property, if I had known about my dad's debt from the beginning, I wouldn't have gotten involved at all." "I understand how you feel," I said, revealing his suspicions. "I thought it deep down, but I chose not to say it. But think about it. Putting aside the money issue for a moment, you got to marry a very attractive woman, right? Isn't that pretty lucky of you?" Of course, I don't know if Jennifer chose Jack because of his assets or if it was truly love. As soon as Jennifer found out about my debt, she left me. I thought she would. "It's exactly as I expected," Jack confessed. "Think about it. How about starting over with me? I feel deceived by Jennifer. I just realized now you're the person I really need." Jack's tone suddenly dropped and became emotional. I wonder if he has forgotten everything he did to me. I thought to myself, feeling cornered. Every day, I'm being rushed by collectors, and the debt I can't repay is piling up. I'm my limit. I really feel my life is in danger. Help me, please, Jack pleaded desperately. Even after hearing his desperate plea, I calmly thought, if I were in this situation, would Jack help me? I'm living peacefully now and am truly satisfied. In the days to come, I want to live in peace. You might have forgotten, but remember what was said at my response. I told Jack. For a moment, he was lost for words on the other end of the phone. You mean back then? He asked, his voice filled with disbelief. Yes, exactly, Jack. I'm really grateful that we were able to get divorced. Thank you for giving me a chance to choose a new path, I said firmly. I felt the tremor in Jack's voice and his tears, but for my future, I made up my mind and quietly ended the call. This marked the complete end of our relationship. I don't know how Jack's life is now or how he's repaying his debt, but I hope he's making an effort somewhere. I thought to myself as I contemplated the situation. Linda, how about taking a walk outside while looking at the beautiful scenery? Currently, I'm enjoying my days with a wonderful person I met through a hobby in Chicago. He's very warm and always with me. Spending time with him brings me unparalleled happiness.